Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Shout out to Spring Street Cigars in Starkville and Oxford. The one in Oxford's been there for a while. It's cool. They've got one in Tupelo, two in DeSoto County. But the new one is in Starkville. Check it out as you're rolling through this weekend before or after you go to Two Brothers Smoked Meats and smash some street tacos or game day wings at Two Brothers. Spring Street Cigars is the new cigar shop in Starkville. It's really, really cool. They did a great job with it. Invested a lot of capital in there. 2 stories, exposed brick, beams. They've got a bar, beautiful walk-in humidor, all at Spring Street Cigars. And now, how many locations do they have now? Starkville, Tupelo, Oxford, 2 in DeSoto County, Kosciuszko, Meridian, and more coming. So remember that in Starkville, Spring Street Cigars. And the one in Oxford's been there for a few years. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, driven by the Ram trucks at Mack Hike and Flowood. We welcome in Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. Lugs will be calling the Clemson-Georgia Tech game on Monday, and you will see him on ABC and ESPN throughout college football season, not counting some of the other hits. And he had to move around a little bit this week. We missed you, man. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. I saw you on TV last weekend. You've been hopping around covering, calling high school football games, and now you go straight into Georgia Tech and Clemson.
Yeah, man. Really, to be honest with you, it was good to kind of get back in the groove with an element that obviously I'm very, very familiar with. So whether it was high school football or high school recruiting, we had a lot of high-profile recruits, kind of get back into the flow of the game before we hit college football on Monday night. So it was actually a really good it was a good primer for me, if you will.
Well, I could tell, you were excited. The juice is there for all of us. We've got our listeners that are going to be heading to Starkville and Oxford this weekend. Jackson State has a big game against FAMU, who actually gave North Carolina some trouble. They look like
that quarterback is pretty dang good, man.
He is, Lugs.
Jeremy Musa.
I know it's been a while for Chiswick, but they gave North Carolina some trouble and did a lot more than I thought they would. So we may have a hell of a game between Coach Prime and FAMU this weekend.
Should, yeah.
He's pulling because of the excitement around primetime. He's pulling over 60,000 people at Veterans Memorial Stadium. And let me back up for a second, Luke, because you cut your teeth on football because your father was a football coach from the time you were little on. We were lucky here in the Jackson area. When I was growing up, Mississippi State and Ole Miss played the majority of their home games here. And they would play double headers, which is hard for people to even wrap their brain around. Okay,
I know, right?
And so, you'd have Mississippi State and Bama with Coach Paul Bear Bryant in Veterans Memorial Stadium for the day game, and at night you'd have Ole Miss and LSU. And then you had W.C. Gordon with Walter Payton and Jackie Slater and so on. And that was back when Southern Miss was good, okay? Bobby Collins would eventually go to SMU, but they kept it rolling with Carmody and Bauer and so on. So you had we watched Bo Jackson here, okay? Herschel, Notre Dame came through. And then it all went away because J-State lost their fastball. We talk about this with you all the time, programs that miss and miss and miss and miss on hires. And now they got primetime back, and they're pulling over 60,000 people at Veterans Memorial Stadium. Isn't that cool?
Well, I tell you, if you got a product, if you're entertaining, which obviously Prime is, and you put a football team on the field that's fun to watch and that it's productive and is winning, people are going to pay attention. Everybody loves a winner. We all know that.
Yeah. They went from drawing 5,000 to 10,000 people the last, I don't know how many years, to over 60. And this weekend could be wild with those two teams. I want to start with what I think is maybe the game of the week in Utah and Florida. I know you told us a week or two ago, hey, I got to see it from Anthony Richardson. But people in Gainesville are saying that as far as talent and head to toe and athleticism and this and that the kid can play and has figured it out and grown up. And I think Dan would have gotten it out of him too because Dan's really good. But the bottom line is it's Napier's team. So I know everybody's talking about and hyping Utah. Usually when we find a team that's somewhat off the grid but well respected with an excellent coach, it doesn't bode well for them. So I'm not sure I'm totally on the Utes train. But tell me what you see in this game and how does Florida win it, considering they're in transition and everything they're doing is new, and Whittingham's been at Utah for 20 years, Tom?
They're going to have to be physical and win at the line of scrimmage because Utah is the only football team in that conference that is built around the trenches. Up front, both sides of the ball, that's the strength of their football team. They bully you. They beat you up. And they got a quarterback in Cam Rising, so there's going to be balance with that offense. But they're an intimidating football team in the trenches. And so if you're Florida on both sides of the ball, and listen, Florida's got some dudes. I mean, whether it's Desmond Watson, Gervon Dexter, Brenton Cox, Ventrell Miller, there's some guys, Trevez Johnson, that are in their front seven that are really talented guys. Now, and maybe a new approach from a defensive perspective, Coach Tony coming over with Billy Napier, coming over with Billy Napier on the defensive side. Maybe a different approach is going to have them playing better football because Florida does not have bad athletes. They've got good athletes. I think Florida kind of started to become similar to what Florida State was becoming, where it was fractured from the inside. It was more about demeanor, more about chemistry, more about personalities that were not meshing than it was necessarily about a lack of talent. So I think this game will be closer than people think because Florida will be well coached. I wouldn't be surprised if you want to sit there and say Utah's on upset alert. I can see that. I can totally see that. But I do need to see Anthony Richardson put it together. I know he's physically gifted. I know he can do things as a runner and as a thrower, but I want to see if he can live up to the hype because he's been praised with a lot of hype and really hasn't done anything yet, Bo.
True. So here's the way you're framing this game up. Does Florida have slightly more talent on paper, but Utah, because of their veteran coach, older dudes in the line of scrimmage, continuity within the schemes, they have the advantage on that side, plus one more advantage for Florida. It's being played in the swamp in September.
Yeah. I mean, I think that helps Florida. I really do. And I think that, humidity and heat are two different things. And you can't prepare for the humidity side of it when, you're up in elevation in Salt Lake City, Utah. But what I think you hit the nail on the head. The continuity, the returning experience, the amount of actual seniors and juniors and redshirt seniors and redshirt juniors that are returning on this Utah team that won 10 games a year ago, I think that's going to have to play a really big role for Utah. Their leadership and their age has to maybe trump Florida's overall athleticism. We'll see. We know Utah's going to be well coached. To make an argument that Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in all of college football, and it has done it, having to come up from the Group of Five level and build the program and enhance the overall talent pool and talent level because they're getting guys now that, they didn't have access to 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And that's why they've gotten to the point they're at.
You and I could do a whole show on coaches that are insanely talented that decide to stay at programs that are not blue blood programs, but they're good because of the coaches, like Kyle Whittingham, Gundy, Gary Patterson, Bill Snyder, Beamer.
Right.
It's just interesting how that most everybody wants to move, like Napier just did, like Saban did, Michigan State to LSU, Urban.
Right.
But every now and then you get that crew of guys that they're going to win for a long time. They're never going to be able to win a title probably, but they're going to go to really cool bowl games, make their fan base happy, and probably never be replaced, really, when you think about it.
Right. And think about the timing of this, Bo. When Utah and Colorado came into the Pac-12, guess who was on a decline? Washington, SC, and UCLA. So it bought Utah some time to build their roster, to get Power 5 level players. I've always said this, everybody who wants to sit there and say, oh, well, group of 5 should be playing in the college football playoff and they should have a chance each and every year. I push back on that hard. Like, for example, I have a lot of respect for Cincinnati. I have a lot of respect for the job that they have done up there. If that team would have been playing in the ACC or the SEC or the Big 12 or the Big 10, they would have been 8-4.
Right.
Okay, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. And people say, well, you don't know that. And I say, yeah, actually I do. I say, go look at TCU and Utah and look at their record their last 3 years at the group of 5 level. All right? Utah, I think, was 36-3, and TCU was 33-6. Their first 2 years at the Power 5 level, they were under 500. And so the bottom line is, if you're going to make that move, you're going to get set back a little bit just because you don't have the depth on your roster to compete. So the timing of having SC, Washington, UCLA somewhat down, Stanford started to go down. It gave Utah a window. And, I think that's one of the reasons why he hasn't had a need to go anywhere else. He's built a Power 5 program out of a Group of 5 program and has risen to the top of a Power 5 conference in a relatively short period of time.
Tom Luginbill with ESPN. He joins us on the Yuengling Lager guest line, talking Week 1 games. He'll call Georgia Tech and Clemson on Monday. And Clemson's my 4th team in the college football playoff. I don't feel great about that, but I got –
They're mine right now, too.
Okay.
They're mine right now, too.
Well, a lot of it was because of what you talked about in their defensive front, even with him losing Venables and Elliott, which does concern me. And the question mark that you mentioned with DJ at QB.
That's the whole thing.
Their talent is still good. I mean, and it's still Dabo. So I'm going Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson. That's what I'm going to roll with. I'm not going Utah.
Real quick, there's really, think about this. If you just go off of history alone, your chances of being 75% correct in that are really, really high.
Because of Dabo, right? I mean,
well, no. I'm saying of the teams you just listed. Georgia,
just who's
Alabama,
made it. I got it. Yeah.
Just because you're sitting there going and everybody said, well, that's the problem with college football. No, that's not the problem with college football. It's not Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Georgia's problem. It's not their responsibility for everybody else to catch up to them. That's not their fault. That's not their problem. Quit complaining about it. It's everybody else's job. Because we talk about expansion, right? We talk about, do we go to 8 teams? Do we go to 12 teams? Do we go to 16 teams? I don't care how many teams you want to go to. We're going to go through different ranges of a college football playoff, and guess what we're going to end up with the Final Four? The exact same teams.
Yeah. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show. All right, let's go to Sunday's game in New Orleans because this is a big one too. LSU hosting Florida State in the Caesar Superdome. Line's 3 and a hook. Could be a close game. I hope it's a close game. Norvell, they started trending the right way. I don't want to go overboard later in the season. Brian Kelly, we know he's good, but again, they're in transition. So who do you like and why as you size up this matchup in New Orleans on Sunday?
Well, Florida State is my sleeper pick in the ACC. And really for what you just said, the latter part of last year, remember, this was a team that last year, all right, lost to Notre Dame, then lost to Jacksonville State, all right? Then they lose at Wake Forest, then they lose to Louisville. So they're 0-4. What would Florida State teams have done the previous 5 years if that would have happened?
Crumbled.
They would have crumbled. They would have pointed fingers. They would have bitched and moaned and been a total locker room disaster. And that's not what this team did. This team actually responded. They came back. They fought. And in the latter part of the year, I mean, they beat Miami. They win at the road on Boston. At Boston College. It actually looked like there was some semblance of order. And I know it was Duquesne in week 1, but that doesn't look like the Florida State team we've watched the last 5 or 6 years. And think about it. At the time this game was scheduled, if you look at this matchup from a 2019 perspective, LSU would be favored in this game by 28 points. easily. If you look at that 2019 team LSU had, and you look at the 2019 team that Florida State had, they were an utter disaster. Now, LSU's come down some. Florida State's gone up some. My only real concern in this, from an upset alert standpoint, is where it's being played. Because I think LSU is going to be better than people think they are, but I also think Florida State's going to be a lot better than people think they are.
Okay. So you are expecting a close game?
I am, yeah. I really am. And I'll tell you this, too. If Jaden Daniels starts for LSU, I don't think they've named him yet. If he does, don't be surprised if he's ineffective and gets pulled for Garrett Nussmeier.
Okay.
I think we've seen the best we'll ever see of Jaden Daniels. It was his freshman year at Arizona State, and he never got better.
Wow. Okay. So Nussmeier, yeah, I'll be interested to see. All right, Mike Detillier, who's a New Orleans insider, LSU, whatever, he told us yesterday, Luke, he felt like Nussmeier would play on Sunday.
I think so, too. When I had them in the spring game, on that particular day, I thought he gave them the best chance. He gave them the most athleticism. He's got some grit and some moxie to him. Mm-hmm. There's just something about he's got a kind of a Baker Mayfield feel to him. So, and I think they need that a little bit, and so it'll be interesting to see how they work through that position.
Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show and the Yuengling Lager guest line. What about Cincinnati and Arkansas? Most teams outside of Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU can't reload. All right. So Cincinnati loses Ritter and the other dude and so on. I get it. Luke Fickell has done an amazing job there and picks up what Ohio State and others don't want and still signs good football players. But are we looking at a massive step back in Arkansas running them off the field this weekend?
I believe we could be looking at just that. And I think this is kind of what we talk about, right? When you have these group of 5 teams and you talk about just being able to plug and play and reload, that's not how those programs are built because they're developmental programs. They're getting guys that predominantly are going to redshirt for the vast majority of each class that they bring in. They're not used to having to play with a bunch of young, inexperienced guys. The drop-off between Amaje Sanders and whoever's going to be replacing him is probably fairly significant, right? So, to me, you got an experienced Arkansas team, and we have a Cincinnati team that's been an outstanding program, but I don't know what they're going to put on the field as far as how much of a drop-off we're going to see. And that would be my chief concern in that matchup. Now, they've got a quarterback that's very, very familiar, and Ben Bryant, he left the program for a year, came back, obviously knows the scheme. That's good. All right, that gives them, I think, some continuity. But I still think when you lose the level of players that they were playing with, and you're at the group of 5 level, it's going to be hard to just bounce right back and have the same program.
All right. Let's discuss Hugh Freeze and Liberty coming into Southern Miss and Hattiesburg this weekend. Even after having Malik Willis, there are some in your world of college football who believe, and again, it's just every year he's been there, he's had more time, that this is going to be Freeze's best team and that he just named another transfer as a QB starter. And we know that Hugh can win with just about anybody at that position. Liberty traveling to Southern Miss. I'm not asking you to break down the rosters because I know you're looking at different things, but that could be an intriguing game, Tom.
Oh, there's no question it could be intriguing. I'm going to be interested to see how good that offense is for Liberty when the quarterback in Charlie Brewer isn't a dynamic athlete like the previous guy they had. Because I do think that makes a difference. I do think that when you are the type of offense where you never know where the quarterback's going to be, it just puts a lot of pressure on defenses, and so they're going to have a bit of a different look. Now they're going to have a good football team because they're well coached and they've recruited well, and that program is really invested in the sport of football. I think that's something that's got to be noted when you talk about Liberty and the enhancements that they've made from an institutional perspective, but. You're right. He's won with just about every quarterback he's had, but I'm going to be curious to see how different they look without the quarterback being kind of a difference maker in the run game.
All right. So Will Hall, head coach at Southern Miss, who played at North Alabama under Hudspeth and was like the Harlan Hill or whatever that trophy is, dude of the year, and Hugh Freeze, and those families know each other and so on. For Mississippi, that's an intriguing matchup. We'll go to Oregon and Georgia. I just Dan Lanning, I wasn't even sure about the hire. I understand Dan did a good job at Georgia, but I'm not sure who couldn't with that kind of talent. First-year head coach. Kirby's got it rolling. I mean, this could be bad for Oregon. How do you see it this weekend?
Well, I think the question you have to ask yourself, and I think you and I would give the exact same answer, is don't we already know what Bo Nix is going to be versus Georgia? He's 0-3. He hasn't played well under duress. He's very, very streaky, albeit very athletic. He has a strong arm. He can do all those things. But, I mean, I don't trust him. That's my biggest issue. I don't trust him to be consistently productive, play in and play out, series in and series out. Now, if he is, all right, then maybe Oregon puts up a fight for a little while. My guess is that he's going to throw the ball up for grabs. He's going to make poor decisions with the football, and he's going to turn over the football.
Will Muschamp / Kirby, now the DC in Athens. Dan Lanning was their DC the last couple of years before going to Oregon. All right, real quick, do I want to go? All right, out of bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. I don't have time. Tom Luginbill on the Yuengling Lager guest line. All right, Lugs, enjoy your son's high school football game this weekend.
Last one.
Yeah, I know. And then you're back on your regular schedule. And then you've got the Monday night game, Georgia Tech and Clemson. Ole Miss fans will be watching that because they have Georgia Tech 2 weeks later in Atlanta. And although I think Jeff has done a pretty damn good job, I just think that's extremely difficult to win there right now. So, anyway.
Well, the other problem, too, real quick before we go, I know you got to run. The other problem, too, is he had to flip a roster of triple option football for 11 years in the middle of a pandemic where for 18 months you couldn't get any kids on campus or go off campus. That's almost impossible.
That is impossible. That's a good point. I think they would be smart because he has recruited so much better than what they did prior to his arrival. I think they would be smart to keep him even if he gets beat up one more year and see if he can find it next year. But I'm not sure that will happen. Have a great week and a good weekend, and we'll be off on Monday, and we'll figure out Tuesday or Wednesday hit. Cool?
Sounds good, man.
All right, buddy.
Thanks.
See you.
All right, bye.
Tom Luginbill on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Oh, speaking of, he'll be coming back from that game, so we'll see if we can. I don't know if we'll be able to get him Tuesday morning. Hopefully we will. If not, we'll get him Wednesday. And that was Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds Show. Brought to you by the Ram Trucks at Mac Hike and Flowood. So once you get that Jeep Wrangler or Ram truck or any pre-owned or new SUV or truck at Mac Hike and Flowood, you can drive a half a mile down the road and drop it at Rick's Pro Truck in Flowood. And you can get whatever you need. Tires, wheels. Rick's Pro Truck can do that. Tires and wheels. Spray and bed liners, lift kits. You know it, everything bumper to bumper. Accessorize your Jeep, truck, or SUV at Mac Hike and Flowood. Visit MacHikeFlowood.com. We're also giving away a 50-inch smart TV. Compliments of USA Pawn and their mega store. Enter via the text line. Tell us why your game day experience is unique. 601-885-3776.